will get started then. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Melissa Barnett. I'm the director of the Francis McClelland Institute. And I have to say, this is generally one of my favorite events in the year, when we have a chance to hear about all the work that's been going on during the year from our undergraduate and graduate researchers. And I usually say this is one of the only events on campus, and so now I'll say it's just one of the only U of A events where we are bringing together graduate student and undergraduate students. And so we are so glad that you can join us. This is our first foray into doing virtual forums, so we may have some technical glitches, but that's okay. And I just want to start off with a huge thank you to Ali Sosi Harvey, who's our program director, and she is really the one who made all of this possible. So thank you so much to Ali, and many of you have received emails from her, and I know she's been wonderful about doing practice sessions with students. So thank you so much to Ali for making today happen. Here at the Francis McClelland Institute, our goals really are to support innovative research that improves the lives of children, youth, and families. And we also are really dedicated to making sure we get that information out into the community and out into the hands of people who can really use that information. All of the work that we do is really in honor of Francis McClelland, who lived a life that really exemplified resilience and was a staunch advocate for research that helped us understand how to improve the lives of children, youth, and families. We do ask you to follow us on all of our social media outlets. And we welcome all of you who are watching on Facebook Live, who are maybe watching later on Facebook. For those of you who are part of the Zoom conversation, that's the student presenters and then other faculty, staff, and graduate students in the Norton School, thank you also for making time to join us today. You'll notice that all of you who are in the Zoom room are muted. When you would like to speak, when it's your turn to present, or if you have a question after the presentations, you can unmute yourself. Student presenters, it's optional. You are more than welcome to share your cameras to start your video when you are presenting, but we're not making that mandatory. And the same thing when people are asking questions. So you'll see we have a really packed agenda. I do want to explain that about half of the presentations are from undergraduate students who have been working in research labs with FSHD, Family Studies and Human Development faculty, and they'll be presenting their projects. About another half, those who are in orange in the agenda that you're looking at, are undergraduate students enrolled in FSHD 408, which is Program Planning and Implementation, and they will be presenting their final projects that are based on work they've been doing looking at organizations or programs that really will positively impact the lives of children, youth, and families. So I don't want to take up any more time. We were going to move on to our first presenter.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Barnett. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Julia Luzzi, and I am an FSHD senior graduating this semester looking for my first job. My research focused on the presence of role modeling healthy eating in early childhood education facilities. From previous research, it is known that young children do not reach the recommended vegetable intake. We also know that most young children spend the bulk of their time in childcare. Role modeling healthy eating, which is defined as eating with children, eating the same foods as children, and enthusiastically showing enjoyment of healthy foods, is an effective way for childcare providers to promote young children's healthy eating. In looking at the literature on Head Start, center-based, and home-based childcare providers, it seems that Head Start teachers are more likely to role model healthy eating, and home-based providers may be least likely to eat fruits and vegetables in front of children. Providers believe they play an important role in the development of children's healthy eating habits. This review of the literature led to the following research questions. Do childcare providers use best practices around role modeling? And are there differences between Head Start, center-based, and home-based childcare providers' use of best practices around role modeling? In this research, we used both quantitative and qualitative methods. For the quantitative strand, the sample consisted of Head Start, center-based, and home-based providers who were responsible for feeding children. These participants completed a survey. For the qualitative strand, 50 of the survey respondents completed in-depth phone interviews. The interview data were used to better understand our findings from the quantitative strand. This is a pretty typical sample of childcare providers. Both the survey and interview samples were mostly white, and about half of the individuals in both samples had a high school degree or GED or an associate's degree. The general trend is that Head Start centers had more teachers meeting best practices than the other two centers. Our first finding from the survey data was that less than 50% of providers in center and home-based settings reported always eating and drinking the same foods and beverages as the children. We used the interview data to better understand why this might be and found that elements of the facility design, such as the setup of mealtimes, the age range of children providers are caring for, and the amount of help providers had, made it challenging for providers to eat the same foods as the children. Also, providers' dietary restrictions and preferences meant they could not eat the same food as the children. Head Start teachers, however, were required to eat with the children, which explains why more than 80% of Head Start teachers reported always eating and drinking the same foods and beverages as the children. Our second quantitative finding was that less than 70% of providers in all settings reported always using enthusiastic role modeling. In the interview data, we found that providers do not include enthusiastic role modeling as part of how they understand role modeling, and providers struggle to be enthusiastic when they disliked the food being served. Our third finding from the survey data was that more than 80% of providers in all settings reported rarely or never eating or drinking unhealthy foods, such as soda, snacks, and sweets, in front of the children. Using the interview data to better understand why this might be, we found that providers know children will copy their behavior, so they were careful to eat healthy foods and avoid unhealthy foods in front of the children. We also found that providers have a separate place where they can eat unhealthy food that is not in front of the children. An implication of this research in regards to nutrition programming is that home-based providers could benefit the most from a nutrition education program that includes role modeling training. There should also be trainings for directors on how to write wellness policies, and these trainings should focus on expert recommendations for healthy eating. Policies in all facilities should stress the importance of role modeling and highlight best practices, as well as emphasize enthusiastic role modeling. Future research should focus on facility design to figure out if elements such as room setup or the presence of teacher aides affect providers' role modeling. Research should focus on home-based facilities because they struggle the most when it comes to eating the same food as children. Also, researchers should design studies where providers are observed during mealtimes to know if or when enthusiastic role modeling occurs. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Thank you so much for that excellent presentation.
Yes, I have one question, and I know that your research is specifically about childcare workers, and I'm assuming that's in the daycare setting. If there's a way for you to interrupt me, please go ahead. But if it's in the daycare setting, I'm wondering if in your research, during your literature review, if you found that teachers in the daycare setting had more of a role model impact than childcare providers in the home.
That's a really great question. I don't think I found anything specifically on that. The research that I looked at was mainly about the childcare providers, and we didn't look into parents and whether they were role models and how effective their role modeling was. So yeah, I don't think I can answer that, but we mainly just looked at the providers in those childcare centers and not at home.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, Julia. I have a
Hi.
question for you.
Yes.
So, I loved your presentation. So interesting, so important.
Thank
So,
you.
how did you decide to do this topic? Like, you could have done anything, right? So, like, why this
Yeah.
topic versus anything else you could have done in family studies?
So I have a minor in nutritional sciences, and so when I found um, Dr. Spears, I realized that kind of the research she was doing, it was a combination of both like family studies and nutrition. So I thought it was really interesting, and I think after doing this, I can like move forward more in this realm, and I'm really interested in this topic.
That's great. And you said, what kind of job are you thinking about? Like, right, you're back in Phoenix, right? What kind of job are
Yeah.
you looking for?
Um, I'm not exactly sure. Something, I think I want to work with kids. I know that. And I don't know if I want to do more of the social work, like family studies field, or go more into like nutrition education.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. That was a great presentation.
Thank
I was also going to say that this is more of a comment, but this would be really good research to show to policymakers,
Mhm.
because that way they could actually see how they could institute, different policies in order to get kids to eat more nutritional foods, and then they could kind of focus on like the Head Start looks like they're doing a good job. So then maybe they could do policies for the other child care centers. So
Yeah,
mine was
exactly.
really a comment, but yeah, this is really good.
Thank you.
Breastfeeding. Great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next presentation.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead, Kevin.
Just a disclaimer, if you hear screaming children, I'm sorry. Anyways, hi, my name is Kevin Anthony Molina, and this is my poster on traditional gender role attitudes and mental health among Latinx and African American young adults. Traditional gender role attitudes are typically developed during the childhood and adolescent period. They are predominantly learned through parental reinforcement and stereotype beliefs of what traditional gender roles are. There's limited research that shows how traditional gender roles may impact mental health. For instance, research has shown that among Latinx young adults, traditional gender roles related to lower perceived self-esteem, reduced social support from families, and poorer mental health. Traditional gender roles have also been linked to adolescents' depressive and anxiety symptoms. Therefore, the study has investigated the relationship between traditional gender roles, attitudes, and anxiety symptoms within Latinx and African American young adults. For the participants of the study, Latinx and African American college students were on average 20 years old, and the majority self-identified as women and reported being born in the US. For the procedures and sample size of the study, African American and Latinx young adults attended a predominantly white university in the Midwest. Participants also completed an initial 1.5-hour assessment on the computer in the laboratory. Participants were also paid $10 for the assessment. 2 scales were used for this study. The first scale was traditional gender role attitudes, which participants completed the traditional gender role attitude scale, which is a 10-item total. One of the example questions was, men should make the really important decisions in the family. The second scale was anxiety symptoms, which is a 21-item scale. For the results, a correlation analysis was conducted in order to see if there was any association between traditional gender roles attitudes and symptoms of anxiety. No association was found. An independent sample t-test was also conducted in order to compare traditional gender roles attitudes between Latinx and African American college students, and no significant difference was also found. In conclusion, although previous research has linked traditional gender roles attitudes and poor mental health symptoms, no association emerged in the current study. Therefore, traditional gender roles attitudes may have changed over generations within Latinx and African American young adults. For future studies, they should investigate associations among non-US born individuals and examine other indicators of mental health and well-being, such as depressive symptoms and self-esteem. Thank you. Any questions? Oh. I read that too fast.
Section, you said that this study should be replicated in non-US born Latinx and African American young adults, and I'm wondering what you think culture, or how culture plays a role in traditional gender roles. Like, how would traditional gender roles in US born Latinx adolescents differ from those born in the US? Sorry, born outside the US differ for those born in the US?
Good question, by the way. For my own opinion, just as a Latinx individual, having that stereotypical family, just the pressure from the family, trying to be the man of the house, sort of say. And I feel like that pressure, that anxiety, that depressive symptoms, self-esteem can all just be collapsed into the individual themselves, especially for a man. So in most minority cases, especially if for non-US born, that they have that more traditional general attitudes. Well, I believe they have more traditional general attitudes towards to them rather than like US born individuals, since US born individuals are taught from a very young age to be themselves and be individualistic by nature, versus like non-US born citizens are taught to be more collective, like in a collective mindset, if that makes sense. I hope I answered your question, by the way.
You did, and great presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
I'm Melissa Curran. Also a great presentation. Thank you so much. I also was laughing at your picture on the left. That was that was so funny. I know I looked more closely. I'm like, what does that look like? Like, I also love your background too. So I just put something in the chat, and so you might be interested in this. And so we have a doctoral student in FSHD, Xiaoming Li, and she just published a great paper in sex roles. And so it's not with Latinx folks, but it's with Chinese spouses, but it's specific to traditional gender ideology. So anyway, just FYI in case that's of interest, because it's for sure a more collectivistic sample than some of the US samples that we traditionally see. So anyway, that's in the chat, and then FYI so that you have that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure,
Thank you so much.
of course.
Any other questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was excellent. And now we're moving on to the next speaker.
Okay, hello. My name is Carly Schmidt, and the research I've been working on over the semester is sending text messages to parents of Family Resource Center families feasible and what are parents' preferences. And so first I'd like to give some background of what the Family Resource Centers are. So the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension operates 2 Family Resource Centers in Santa Cruz County that provide in-person parent education classes for local families with children birth to 5. And so the FRC director wanted to see if parents would be open to receiving text messages and if that was an option. And so the purpose of this research was to use survey data to explore the acceptability and feasibility of sending text messages to parents of young children who attend the FRCs and use focus group data to explore parents' preferences for message content. So with the surveys, it was a paper and pencil survey in English and Spanish, and it was used to collect data about the text messages. So questions that were asked to the parents were, what is the best way for the FRC to send you messages? Email, text message, Facebook, in person? Should the FRC send you messages and information more or less than it currently does? And if the FRC sent you 1 to 2 messages each week, would you be concerned that this would make your phone bill too high? And so there were 46 parents who were attending the classes, and then their information gathered was calculated with frequencies. And then the focus groups were geared more towards text message content and what the parents were looking for in the text messages. So focus groups were conducted, and parents were shown sample text messages on like a PowerPoint and asked if there were translation errors or if there was anything they didn't like about the text messages or anything they did like or things they wish they saw in the text messages. So their answers were coded, and the codes were grouped into categories to help anyone looking at it realize what would be helpful to include in text messages. So if you look at the results section, you can see the bar graphs for the survey data. So 87% of people said that they would prefer to receive information from text messages. And then 61% said that they would be okay with the FRC sending them more information than it currently does. And then 98% said that 1 to 2 text messages wouldn't make their phone bill too high. And then with the focus groups, several themes were able to be kind of honed in on for what parents preferred to have in their text messages. And so they wanted text messages to be easy to understand and to use and to include concise and clear language. And they also pointed out that it would be helpful if text messages included more than text. So they gave examples such as audio or pictures to go along with the text, or links to outside resources like Facebook pages or other websites with parent information. And they also gave the suggestion of having specific examples within text messages, like when suggesting an activity for parents, explain why parents should do it, or if you are telling parents not to say no to their child, give them something else to say rather than just saying no. And so what this means is that text messages appear to be a feasible option for the FRC, and that parents said that it would not be a financial burden to receive text messages and that they prefer text messages over other forms of communication. And so our results were similar to those of a study of an urban center where parents were also interested in receiving text messages. And so what does this mean for the future? It means that since parents are open to the idea of text messages, research can start to explore the effectiveness of what types of messages are most helpful for parents. And so that's all for my research, and if anyone has any questions.
And it was really interesting. So, so how did you decide to do this? Like, is it because like text messages are what everyone wants to have, or like was there preferences asked, or like how to convey information, or like I'm super curious as to why you looked at this as your focus.
So I've been doing research with Catherine Spears over the course of the semester, and she is an extension agent for Cooperative Extension, and She works closely with the FRC, and I think this was just something that the director was really interested in seeing if parents were open to. And so I helped Dr. Spears with her research and the FRC director's research on the text messages for the parents.
Okay, because you know, one thing that I always think about is like, and I know maybe your sample was not necessarily lower income folks, but one thing that often comes up with lower income folks is like they might not have great internet access, right? But it seems like, and I could be wrong, that most people have phones and or messaging. So is that like something that would be a helpful consideration in terms of thinking about like who's receiving this information, you know, a greater broad spectrum of folks who could be receiving that information, giving them its text messages versus needing to have like a smartphone or internet connection?
Yeah, I think the text messages are a really good option for parents who might not have consistent Wi-Fi or data. And I think that's why it was really important that we asked the question of if the text messages would make their phone bill too high. So it's really exciting to hear that almost all of them said that text messages wouldn't be a financial burden for them.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Palick. Did you have a question?
Yeah, great job. And then also, do you plan to follow up to like once they start text messaging to see what kind of messages are effective? Is that something that you may look at in the future?
I think that's definitely something Dr. Spears intends to follow up with. I know she mentioned something about a plan to use like a Remind app to send out like text so one person doesn't have to send out text to all the parents. And so I think that her and the FRC director might be looking more into the more specifics of what the text should include or following up with when they do send the text, what the results are.
Wonderful, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carly. And we are moving on to our next presenter.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela Chris Castorena, and today we'll be talking about the role of friendship quality and romantic relationship satisfaction on mental health and academic aspirations. So social support is defined as an external resource that helps individuals deal with stressful life experiences. Low social support has been related to decreased mental health, which has also been shown to be negatively related to academic outcomes and performance. There are cultural differences in the perceived quality within these friendships and romantic relationships for ethnic minorities due to parental regulations, cultural expectations, and economic and behavioral factors, which can all have a substantial influence on mental health. However, there is less focus on how social support from various types of relationships may relate to academic aspirations within African and Latinx communities. The purpose of the study was to investigate if quality of relationships with friends and romantic partners were associated with Latinx and African American young adults' mental health and academic aspirations. So this is based off the same larger study that Kevin Molina used. So just as a reminder, there were 145 Latino and African American college students attending a predominantly white university in the Midwest. And for this study, we used 6 different scales. We looked at friendship quality, romantic relationship satisfaction, and to assess mental health, we looked at depressive symptoms and anxiety symptoms. And to assess academics, we looked at academic aspirations and academic commitment. So for our results, multiple regression analyses were conducted in order to investigate if relationship satisfaction and friendship quality predicted mental health, academic aspirations, and commitment. So it turns out that for academic aspirations, neither romantic relationship satisfaction nor friendship quality were significant. For academic commitment, however, romantic relationship satisfaction predicted greater commitment. This meant that as relationship satisfaction increased, individuals were more committed to their academic goals, so that they were more likely to get better grades and believe in the importance of graduating. For depressive symptoms, friendship quality emerges as a marginally significant predictor. That means that the greater the friendship quality related to fewer depressive symptoms. And for anxiety symptoms, neither romantic relationship satisfaction nor friendship quality were significant. So we concluded that romantic relationship satisfaction may be important for one's commitment to education, whereas friendship quality may be important for mental health. However, because this is a cross-sectional study, we can't say that correlation implies causation. That means that we don't know for sure if because they have a more satisfying or higher quality relationship or friendship, that they are likely to have more academic commitment or better mental health. It could be that those that already do have more academic commitment and better health are more likely to have more satisfying and higher quality relationships. So further longitudinal research would be needed. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello. I'm just wondering what you think, or how you think that this might be different if you did adolescents, so like high school students versus college students, and whether or not you think that friendship would then be more important, as well as romantic relations. I mean, I know it's you didn't look at that, but I was just curious what you thought, how it might be different.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think if we were to look at adolescents for this study, we would see more results in academic aspirations. I think since these were college students, they already had a good idea of what they wanted to do education-wise. So I think if we were to look at adolescents, we'd see maybe different changes in how far they would want to go in college if they wanted to pursue graduate school. But I think since they were in college already, they already have a good mindset of what they wanted to do. As for friendships, I'm not sure. I think friendships have similar impact at any age. And but that'd be a good thing to look further into to see if different age groups have differences within these different variables.
Thanks. Great job on your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniela. I think we are ready to move on to our next presentation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Miracle, and this semester I got to be a preceptor with Dr. Melissa Curran and her FSHD 487 class. And as part of that, I was able to do some research under the feminism topic, especially the Equal Pay Act. And I gathered some information and was even able to present in class. So I would like to share with you guys what I've learned. So a little background on the Equal Pay Act is when the Equal Pay Act was first signed in 1963, women earned 59 cents for each $1 a man made. And now in 2020, it's around 79 cents for each dollar a man makes, which is still a 20-cent difference from when it was originally signed in 1963. So the way that they justify this is that this means that women must be paid the same for equal work on jobs with equal level of skill, effort, and responsibility. However, we see now that men are paid a higher wage than females based on seniority, merit, productivity, and a differential based on any other factor than sex. So this language limits women from filing and winning lawsuits. And even if the company is found in violation, the only current penalty is to pay 2 years of the retroactive pay. So if you look at Arizona statistics, we're ranked number 35 overall as of March 2016. And the labor force is made up of 54.5% women, and we're ranked 46 out of 50 in that area. And 38.6% of women are in managerial or professional occupations. So overall, Arizona has a C- on the Earnings Composite Index and is ranked in the worst third for equal pay in the United States. But if we pull out and look at the nationwide statistics, we can see that Washington, D.C. is the best state to work in because women earn 86.7% of what men make. And the worst state to work is in Mississippi, where women only earn 74 0.5% of what men make. So in this next box, we talk about the equal pay days in 2020. So traditionally, the pay parity between men and women should be on December 31st of each year. But if you look below, you can see all the dates that a woman must work to earn equal pay for 2019 in 2020. And something that stood out to me was especially for mothers, because they only earn 70 cents for each dollar a man makes and must work until June 4th to earn equal pay for 2019 and 2020. So the reason why this is relevant to everyone is because the less money that a woman earns, the less money can go to the woman for her savings, her checking, her retirement account, or her stock market account. Other women, her family system, her children, any other caregiving she does. And this even goes out broader, like healthcare, school costs, saving for college for her children, healthcare options and facilities. And more broadly, the economy, the gross domestic product, which is the measures of the total market value gross of all US goods and services produced in the United States. And compared with prior periods, the GDP tells us whether the economy is expanding or producing more goods and services. So implications continuing why this is relevant to everyone is because in 2018, using BLS data released in 2019 as specific to mothers, 65% of mothers with children under 6 were employed, 76% of mothers with children between 6 and 17 were employed, and 74.1% of single mothers were employed. With the 70 cents that we saw earlier for every dollar a man makes, with mothers earning less than the fathers on average, this leaves less money for essentials for the family, such as food, clothing, and housing. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Hi, Emma. Great presentation. Thank you for sharing that. So I know several people, like Julia and Lauren, Crystal, have heard that, but in case people haven't heard that, like why, why should other people care? Not just us and FSHD and people who are here, but why do you think this information is so meaningful and important? What else would you say around that?
I think that this is relevant to everyone because I think there's a lot of stigma around feminism and equal pay. And I think it's even just as a woman myself, just going out into the workforce, knowing that with the same amount of education and the same amount of experience that I could be paid less than my male counterpart, and just being mindful of that, and everyone going into that, knowing that you can be paid equally and you should be paid equally.
Yeah, those are great points. Thank you. And thanks for the super helpful information. It's terrible to read, right? It's terrible, especially about Arizona and our C- rating and being ranked 35. But, information is power. So totally appreciate you putting this together and sharing it. Thanks, Emma.
Is Emma still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hi, Emma. This is Dr. Zeiders. I'm a faculty in the department. Nice job on your presentation. It's great that you were able to compile data and present on such an important topic. I had a question for you in regards to race and ethnicity. What the role is of women's race and ethnicity in these disparities in terms of pay. Do you know, or are you aware of that and the importance of that?
Right. So I personally wasn't aware until last semester when I was able to take the class, and then going into further research, I saw that the reason why this can continue is because, especially during the application process, you have to mark down all of these things. And so then it continues even further as these women of color aren't getting the interview or getting the job. So then it just continues to further make the pay separation even wider.
Yeah, and that Latina and African American women receive 39% less pay than white women, and then I think Latinas are 45% less. So it's a huge disparity. Thanks for commenting on that.
Yeah, so Dr. Zeiders, great point, and Emma actually has that. It's hard to see, but in the left under equal pay days.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, those are all the days that a woman must work to in 2020 to receive the pay that she should have received in 2019.
Yep, I can see it now. Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, hi, Emma.
I
This is Tim Oddish. Great presentation, super interesting. I was thinking about the nationwide statistics part. Like I was thinking about my wife and I, because if we lived in Oregon, she's a nurse, she actually would earn more than me. But in Arizona, based on how nurses are paid, she actually earns less than me. So I was curious, like, if some of the nationwide statistics, if you know why, you know, DC and Mississippi, so like are stereotypical positions such as like nurses and teachers paid well or poorly in those areas, or like I wasn't sure if you knew of like the breakdown of how some of those work.
Right. So actually in 487, we also saw a chart about the different occupations that women and men have in different roles. So I think in different states, there's different rankings for each. So if you look at where it says Arizona statistics, you can see how much of the labor force was like made up of women. And then how, like, even breaking that down even further is who's in a managerial or professional occupation. So I think it's very specific to each state and what position the woman is in each state as well.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a nursing student at the U of A.
Hi, I'm Carly, and I'm a psychology student at the U of A as well. Our poster is titled Teacher Attachment and its Relationships with Academic Aspirations and GPA in Latinx Students. We have been part of a collaborative research lab, the Voices Project, for the past year that includes students and professors from ASU and U of A, including Dr. Rajni Nair, an ASU professor in the College of Integrative Sciences and Arts, and Dr. Melissa Delgado, a U of A professor in the Norton School of Family and Consumer Sciences.
Some background about the Voices and Alcance projects. These are two collaborative studies focused on examining the school experience of Latinx youth. And the Voices project is a mixed method study of 207 Latinx middle school students from Casa Grande, and we sent them online surveys to measure the effects of school climate regarding a variety of factors.
The direction we took for our poster was measuring the effects of teacher attachment on the students' GPA and academic aspirations. Teacher attachment is defined as the level of connections students perceive to have with their teachers. We decided to study teacher attachment because during our time in this research lab last semester, we had the opportunity to attend a teacher focus group with teachers who taught at middle schools in Casa Grande. We both enjoyed this experience and have since become passionate about discovering more on how students' GPA and academic aspirations may be affected by the relationships they have with their teachers. When looking through literature previously studied about these concepts, we found that large academic disparities were present between Latinx students and their classmates. Latinx students were more likely to be the first person in their family to attend college compared to African American, Asian American, and white students. This fact alone could be a major reason why fostering academic aspirations in Latinx students is so important.
In regard to teacher attachment, research has shown that teacher relationships were found to be the most impactful for school outcomes when compared to other relationships. Teacher support for Latinx middle and high school students was found to be the most influential factor when predicting better academic performance, and considering both of these findings, we deduced that teacher attachment played a vital role in improving GPA and academic aspirations in Latinx students.
Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the measures we used. GPA and academic aspirations were measured with one item, whereas teacher attachment was measured with a 9-item scale that assessed positive adolescent attachment to their teachers. Academic aspiration was defined as the measure of how far a student desired to go in school, with options ranging from 1 through 11 years of school to college. GPA was measured as a self-report of what grades students mostly got in school, with responses ranging from mostly A's to mostly F's. We used SPSS to study our hypotheses.
We found a positive, significant association between GPA and teacher attachment. However, the association between academic aspirations and teacher attachment was positive but not statistically significant. Some reasons we think GPA is more significant than academic aspirations is that teachers may have more of an effect on students' grades and GPAs, whereas academic aspirations can be influenced by a lot of other factors, including family and peers.
With these results in mind, we think that teachers should participate in more diversity training to increase their positive interactions and relationships with all students, regardless of race or ethnicity. Additionally, teachers should attempt to build a positive working relationship with their students that includes a sense of collaboration along with warmth and trust.
Limitations for this study that we encountered were that our sample included only students from one Southwestern state, and therefore the study might not be generalizable to students outside of this region. The study further did not control for gender or nativity, and future work should take these variables into account in order to fully create the best approach to increasing positive teacher-child relationships. Our method was limited because we only used a survey that measured the effects at one point in time, so a longitudinal study may be more effective in understanding long-term effects of teacher-child relationships.
Given that there is a large population of Latinx students in Arizona, this type of research is really salient for reducing inequality. Thank you for listening, and we would love to hear any questions you have.
Thank you.
Hi, Carly and Sophie. I think you did a great job with your presentation. I just had a question for y'all. Did you expect to find a link between teacher attachment and GPA before you ran your analyses?
Personally, I can't speak for Carly, but I know I assumed that there would be between GPA just because within the classroom setting, teachers have such an influence on the grades that you receive, and I wasn't expecting to find it with academic aspirations as much, and based on the data that we got, it was accurate, but with grades, I feel like teachers have a really, really big impact, so I was definitely expecting that.
Yeah, I agree. I also definitely expected to see the impact on GPA, and I thought there might also be an impact on academic aspirations, so I was a little surprised to see that that wasn't significant.
Yeah, thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Great job on your presentations. You guys did really well. Just a quick sort of I guess a thought question more of how do you think that policymakers and I guess the city that we collect this data from can support teacher attachment in Latinx adolescents? Like what can teachers do? What can the school do to really support a relationship between teachers and students so that teacher attachment can form?
Yeah, that's a good question. We briefly mentioned how we think diversity training in teachers would be a good idea, so that way they feel more comfortable teaching students from all backgrounds with equality. And I think that more trainings like that and just bringing in more cultures into teaching would be very valuable.
Yeah, I remember too at the focus group how a lot of the teachers were saying that if you had never worked in a city like Casa Grande where there was a majority Latinx students, it was really, really hard to stay in the district, and a lot of teachers would drop out after 1 or 2 years. So maybe creating an incentive to keep them working with the students, because a lot of them said that after 3 or 4 years, it got a lot easier, working with the specific ethnicities and races within Casa Grande.
Great, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Hi guys, great job on your presentation. This is really interesting. Did it matter what ethnicity the teacher was, or did you look at that at all?
I know that we didn't look at that personally within this poster, but reading a couple articles while looking through data that was previously existing, I did see that there was a couple articles about teachers being the same ethnicity as the student and how that affected it, and then teachers who were at opposite ethnicities or different ethnicities than the students and how that affected it as well. And that data showed that the same race or ethnicity as the student created better teacher attachments, but we decided for our poster not to look at that.
Yeah, and also going off of what Sophie said earlier about the teacher focus group, when we were there, we also talked to teachers of different ethnicities, and a lot of them said if they were Latinx, they had an easier time bonding with the students. So we also learned that there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that terrific presentation, and we are ready to move on to the next.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing well, especially during these hard times right now. Today, Nancy and I will be talking about a research project titled Head Start Teacher Strategies for Creating Safe Classroom Climates. So like mentioned before, our aim for this research was to identify the strategies that Head Start teachers use to create safe classroom climates for children. For starters, Head Start Schools is a federal program that promotes school readiness in children from low-income families by enhancing cognitive, social, and emotional development. Research suggests that children in Head Start are at an academic disadvantage due to their economic status and are provided with fewer opportunities to engage in rich interactions that are important for their development. Other research emphasizes the importance that children need to feel safe in school in order to learn better and reach optimal development. By feeling safe in the classroom, children are more likely to explore their knowledge and take academic risks, which as a result helps them become better students in the long run. So with this in mind, we began to identify for ourselves the different strategies that teachers use in order to create this classroom climate.
For the methods portion of our project, the recruitment of participants was done through in-person recruitment at Southwest Arizona Head Start preschools, and flyers were sent out to directors to be handed out to their lead and co-teachers. Incentivizing teachers was a $20 cash payment for completing a focus group to boost participation in our research. For the recruitment process, teachers needed to fill out a 5-minute Qualtrics survey before they were able to qualify for the research project. The Qualtrics survey provided us information on the demographics of our population, which we found all identified as female, 95% identified as Latinx, and their average years teaching in Head Start was high, with 14.5 years. The survey also asked teachers to sign up for a focus group at the end of the survey that matched with their availability. The Head Start teachers' 90-minute focus groups were all held in public libraries to remove any biases or power dynamics that may come with facilitating a focus group where a teacher may work. Focus groups were audio recorded and professionally transcribed with participants assigned pseudonyms to maintain their anonymity in the transcripts. For the analysis of the data accumulated from the focus groups, Christian and I developed a codebook using a database formation of codes. Double coding was used to minimize our biases in the coded data, which were reconciled after reliability checks.
So after analyzing our data, we came to the conclusion that a total of 3 strategies were used by Head Start teachers to promote a safe classroom climate. The first strategy that teachers used, which was also the most prominent one, was about teachers providing consistency in the classroom. In this strategy, teachers talked about providing routine, stability, and consistency. This next strategy was about teachers building relationships with children, and teachers did this by providing care, love, and also creating social emotional bond and trust with the children. This final strategy that we discovered was about teachers' usage of positive guidance. Teachers use positive guidance by promoting positive wording and redirection to the children.
These results led us to the following conclusions and implications for Head Start practice. The main reason teachers stated providing consistency in the classroom was used to create safe classroom climates was because it decreased children's anxiety. The sense of security children gained from the stability of classroom provides in a case commented by one teacher stated, "It may make some children feel safer in the classroom than at home when home life is inconsistent." The second strategy teachers use is by building relationships with the children in the classroom, which in Brookfield and Jensen studies states it empowers children to become more engaged in classroom activities because children are not worrying about their safety. Teachers reinforce positive relationships by telling children they are loved and by creating trust, which is seen in the quotes featured in the results section of our poster. The last strategy teachers highlighted to create safe classroom climates was using positive guidance, a teaching strategy. One teacher claimed it boosted children's confidence knowing that the teacher supported them, creating a sense of security in the classroom. An important limitation of this project was that teachers were not explicitly asked these strategies for creating safe classroom climates because our data is drawn from a project that focused on home classroom continuity. In turn, further research is needed to investigate explicitly the strategies utilized by Head Start teachers in their classroom to create safe classroom climates, improving the reliability of the data we found on this topic.
In addition to our project funders, we would like to thank our local Head Start partnership and participation, and a special thank you to Shannon Warren for this opportunity and all her help. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Hi, great job on your presentation. This is really interesting. I know that the question I'm about to ask you, it's not really related to your topic, but since you're reading these transcripts, I'm wondering, because it is a huge sort of responsibility for these teachers to create a safe environment, and it's absolutely needed. And I'm wondering if, when you're reading these transcripts, if you saw how that pressure to create a safe environment, or if they felt pressure to create a safe environment, and how that might, like, if they expressed feelings about whether or not they felt pressure to create a safe environment, did it come naturally to them? And I'm wondering if that was sort of like seen in the transcripts.
Yeah, that's a good question. So from reading the transcripts, I don't think that the teachers were pressured to give this type of set this climate for the children. In these transcripts, the Head Start teachers made it like very clear that they were very passionate about like teaching their students, and like their focus was basically to provide this quality education for the children. So I think it kind of came from within them, and they weren't really pressured. It was just very natural to them to just create this environment for them, because they know how hard their living situations are. And so in order to like give them the best quality of education, they just naturally created this safe classroom climate. And then from that, we saw in the transcripts, we're like, oh, wow, this is a good topic. And so we did research on it. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Chris and Nancy. Of course, I have to ask a question because I just love hearing you guys talk about this project that you did, and you did a great job presenting it. I wondered if you could share one specific aspect about this research experience that you feel has been particularly helpful for your own development.
Yeah, so this research project was new to Chris and I, because we have never really dabbled in research before. We are both not in FHD. I'm in elementary education. So this was very new for us. And so we learned a lot. So from the beginning of just recruiting people through flyers and telecommunication, it was just a whole process that was really fun learning about, and learning how to do research. And we did qualitative research and how that kind of looks, and how that could like further help research and especially people in this community.
Yeah, to add on to Nancy's comment, I am a physio major, so this is also very new to me, and like it was really exciting to learn and all that stuff. And through this project, we did coding, and I've never done that before, so it was nice to like see how that works and whatnot. So I know I will be using coding in the future if I were to do research. So yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're ready to move on to the next presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Yamilex Ramirez, and I'm an undergraduate student in Family Studies. My presentation is titled Young Adults' Mental Health Disclosures, Impact on Meta-Perceptions, Family Relationships, and Coping. So we've seen in many studies that there are benefits to disclosing to family members, such as greater social and practical support. Positive reactions from the family members in particular at the time of disclosure have been found to be associated with less severe symptoms of mental health problems. And disclosure itself has been found to be associated with perceptions of improved relationships too. So because the family can have a positive impact on the recovery of mental health, it became important to our study to further explore how the disclosure can influence relationship quality, which could potentially impact the family's willingness to support the individual. So metaperception is tied to this. Metaperception is how you think others perceive you, and it's developed given the feedback that we receive from how others treat and react to us. With this reasoning, the treatment after a mental health disclosure might influence the disclosing individual's metaperception, which theoretically could influence the relationship quality with the person they disclose to. But there's limited research on how the reactions and treatment from the family after disclosure influence these metaperceptions. Some of the findings show that negative treatment, such as avoidance from family members, influences a negative metaperception, which is associated with poor relationship quality. But it's also unknown if these variables influence coping. The issue is that these findings were not the focus of previous research studies, and so they were just mentioned in passing. The variables of interest in this case haven't been studied together either. And most of the studies focused on clinically diagnosed participants, which leaves out the people who are not clinically diagnosed but are still affected by their mental health study. So our study included both of these populations. So when young adults disclose a mental health problem to a close family member, we wanted to explore how the family member's reaction and treatment toward the disclosing individual is associated with changes in the individual's metaperception, relationship strength, and coping after disclosure. And to answer our questions, we distributed an anonymous online survey through listservs at the University of Arizona. We used social media and flyers as well. And to be eligible, participants had to be 18 to 35 years old. They must have identified as having a mental health problem with or without a clinical diagnosis. And they must have told a close family member about their problem. We had 104 participants, and in the survey they were asked about their satisfaction with their relatives' reaction and treatment toward them, changes in their metaperception, relationship strength, severity of symptoms, and their ability to cope. And both closed and open-ended questions were used. So generally, participants were satisfied with how their family member reacted and treated them after disclosure. Many of the participants thought that their family members' perceptions of them didn't change and that their relationships were stronger. And with the qualitative responses, we were able to gain insight as to why that may have been and why they perceived that their relationships strengthened after disclosure. So after running multiple regressions, we found that how satisfied the young adults were with how their family member treated them after disclosure significantly predicted their metaperception, which again is how the individual thinks their family member thinks of them. Treatment satisfaction also predicted relationship strength. And even though treatment satisfaction and relationship strength were generally high, the open-ended responses gave us insight into the negative side of the results. As one participant who experienced dismissal, they mentioned, the relationship feels like it lacks the depth of trust that it could have. And in return for his dismissal, I feel less compassion for him. Metaperception was not a significant predictor for relationship strength, but metaperception and relationship strength did predict the severity of symptoms and the ability to cope respectively. There were many other variables that we did not control in this study, such as whether participants attended therapy or consumed medication, but that's an avenue for future research to look at. Given our findings though, it's important for family members to be conscious of how their actions can directly and indirectly influence one's ability to cope with their mental health problem. There's plenty of great support that the family can give, and it really starts from the moment of disclosure. Simply validating the individual and asking how you can support them can really go a long way. So, thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Hi, Yami. This is Katie Zeiders. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great poster. I loved hearing about the topic and the work on this. I was curious about your future plans and how, if you plan to follow up on this research and in what way?
Yeah, so there were, as I mentioned, so I want to be a clinical social worker, which deals, with mental health. But there were so many variables that we didn't look at, and in doing this study, I wish we would have had time to look at. So I might be more interested in taking this into like a master's project so that those other variables could be looked at, because there's so many factors that go into influencing how disclosure impacts family relationships. But given the time, we couldn't look at all those variables.
That's great. And congratulations on graduation.
Thank you.
Hi, Yami. It's Melissa Curran. Oh, great job. I love this. Such great work. We're so impressed. And I love what you just said to Dr. Zeiders in terms of when you do research, like kind of have to do it sequentially. Like what's your first good idea and like what's your next idea? So I love what you just said because I feel like it's so true, right? Like you get in the kernel of what you're interested in and then like what else can you learn? Like what else can you build? What else can you ask? Like that was just such an exciting statement from you because it's totally how people, like you don't even have to go to, you know, graduate school, right? Or you'll be a doctoral student, but it's just super exciting to hear you say that because it's like so much like theory and science and academia. So I have no questions, just a comment. But I appreciated that you said that because it was just very much like that whole idea about like scientific progression. So it just warms my heart to hear you say that and to see all the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we will thank you very much for that great presentation. We'll move on to the next presentation, and actually we will have Evelyn Sarsar, who is going to present two times in a row. Once she's going to stand up for Alexandra, and then she's going to present her own work.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Sarsar. I'm filling in for Alex. She's been feeling really sick all week, so I really wanted to get her research and all her hard work out there. So today I'm going to be talking about traumatic life events and quality of romantic relationships. So a traumatic life event is defined as an experience that is anxiety-provoking and life-threatening. After the occurrence of a traumatic event, it is common for an individual to experience a variety of symptoms such as avoidance of stimuli relating to the trauma, numbing, hyperarousal, and intrusive thoughts. While there is a plethora of research on how trauma is related to an individual's negative mental and physical outcomes, it is less clear as to how traumatic life events may relate to one's quality of romantic relationships. Romantic relationships are central to the lives of emerging adults, as romantic relationships become the closest relationship an individual has in early adulthood. Those that struggle with trauma-related mental health issues may struggle to reciprocate qualities such as emotional support, help, and companionship in romantic relationships. Trauma-related numbing and avoidance can reduce the amount of time a couple would spend doing pleasurable activities and lessen expressions of love. This research investigated how traumatic life events may relate to a change in quality within romantic relationships among Latinx and African American college students. Therefore, it was hypothesized that traumatic life events will relate to lower relationship commitment, intimacy, and passion in a college student's romantic relationship. So these data comes from a larger data set. Kevin and Daniela already touched upon some of the more specific details, so I'm just going to be brief here. There were 145 total participants. Some of the questionnaires that were given were the perceived relationship quality component measure. So in this measure, participants were asked to report on current relationship or on their previous relationship. So current and previous relationship, and specifically asked their commitment, intimacy, and passion. And then participants also filled out the life events checklist. So this just assesses the occurrence of various traumatic life events. And then moving on to the results, so correlation analyses were conducted in order to see if there was an association between traumatic life events and the three aspects of relationship quality, so commitment, intimacy, and passion. Results revealed that witnessing and experiencing a traumatic life event was significantly associated with relationship intimacy and passion, but not relationship commitment. Therefore, young adults who had witnessed and or experienced more traumatic life events reported less intimacy and passion. Trauma may not affect young adults' commitment to their partners. However, trauma may be important for emotional and physical aspects of romantic relationships. Further research should maybe look into more longitudinal research as this was cross-sectional. And that's it.
I just want to say thank you to Evelyn. This was, Evelyn worked really hard with Alex on this poster, and Alex, as Evelyn said, was really, really sick. So she couldn't present here today. And Evelyn actually is a PhD student, for some of you that don't know, is a PhD student in our program, and she has her own area of research that she's going to be talking about in a minute, but she helps with the literature review, data analysis. So thank you, Evelyn.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, great job on your presentation. This is really interesting. I'm curious whether, so I'm reading the traumatic life events, and I'm wondering, just because of what's going on now, if you think that would be classified as a traumatic life event?
I personally, this isn't my area of research. However, I do think that it could be considered traumatic to someone with all this social distancing things going on, with even, you know, like I think family members or close friends or people you know might be getting sick. I feel like it could potentially be traumatic. If you see the traumatic life events checklist, one of the things that it says is, you know, like life-threatening injury or illness, or severe human suffering. So I do think that what's going on in the world right now could potentially be traumatic to someone. So yeah, that's a really good question.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. If you want to go ahead and present your own work now. Thanks.
Okay, so hi everyone. So I'm going to be talking about the role of racial microaggressions among African American and Latina college students. So racial microaggressions are subtle forms of racial discrimination experienced by marginalized groups during day-to-day interactions. Research suggests that these experiences are common among racial minority young adults on college campuses, particularly at predominantly white institutions. Although racial microaggressions are subtle, past research has indicated that the exposure to racial microaggressions can impact one's psychological and physical well-being. Less is known, however, about how racial microaggressions may impact academic belonging within the college setting. So therefore, the purpose of the study was to investigate if racial microaggressions were associated with 3 aspects of academic belonging. So belonging with peers, faculty members, and administrators. So moving on to my methods section, these data come from a larger data set, and as I mentioned previously, Kevin and Daniela have already talked about the larger data set. So again, I'm going to be brief here for the sake of time. So there were a total of 145 Latino and African American college students. They were assessed at 4 time points, so across 4 weeks. Participants were between the ages of 18 and 25 years of age. Participants completed the racial and ethnic microaggression scale for a total of 35 items, 5 subscales. Participants also completed the College Students Experiences Questionnaire. So this assessed the quality of relationship and sense of belonging with peers, faculty members, and administrative personnel. So moving on to my results, across the study, young adults reported an average of 4 racial microaggressions a week. Nearly 90% of all young adults reported at least 1 racial microaggression across the 4 weeks. And then multi-level regressions indicated a within-person effect on peer belonging. So on weeks that students reported more microaggressions, they reported lower academic belonging with peers. Within-person effects on faculty and administrative belonging were not significant. So overall, racial microaggressions can impact one's sense of belonging with others. College institutions must acknowledge that these subtle yet impactful forms of discrimination are still very prominent on college campuses and have implications for young adults' academic belonging. Thank you.
Hi again. This is really interesting. So I'm curious about whether or not you asked who said the microaggression, because that I was just thinking about, like, if it was classmates or things like that, then I could see how it'd be lower academic belonging with peers. But then I was just curious if some people heard it from faculty or administrators, and if you asked that.
Yeah, so I believe the scale, the racial ethnic microaggression scale, does ask who the perpetrator was. So it'll ask like who it was, whether it was a friend, coworker. So it just asks specifically who it was, and let's see, and then how far back in time it was. So it's asked within the past 7 days. So it does specifically ask who it was. Not sure if it asks specifically if it was a faculty member or administrator, but I think participants could indicate specifically who that person was. So yes, this measure does ask who that perpetrator was.
Okay, thanks. Great
Yeah,
job.
no problem.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Evelyn, and we really appreciate you being our graduate student representative here as well and presenting your work today.
Yeah, no problem.
We don't have any more questions. We're now going to transition to the next group of presenters. And before we do that, I'm going to ask Dr. Rick Wood, who is the instructor for FSHD 408, to say a few words of introduction.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barnett. I'd like to first off thank Ms. Tasozi Harvey and Dr. Barnett and the McClellan Institute for providing an opportunity for the students that participated in the program planning and evaluation course this past spring. That's Family Studies of 408. Now, the objective of the course was that each student or group of students would either develop their own social service agency that was designed to improve children, youth, or families, and also if they did a case study on one specific organization, then to come up with different opportunities for that organization to improve or enhance their service delivery. Dr. Palick and Alexandria Pesh were co-instructors and worked tirelessly with all of these different groups in these presentations. And each group or each individual, we started with the mission statement of an organization. We went all the way through the needs assessment, budgets, and evaluation. And it is in the realm of a quote applied research and evaluation, and the teaching team is extremely proud of all of the presentations that are going to be discussed today. Even a couple of these are going to try to look for funding and actually create this type of agency. So in terms of time, I know we're running a little bit behind schedule here. So we will, you know, the team has asked many questions over this semester, so we won't really chime in with a lot of questions, but anybody else, please feel free. And so let's just turn over to our first presenter, Anthony, who's going to talk about Together We Can, which is an organization or a social service agency that could actually exist. So Anthony, it's up to you. Let's go.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Anthony Ortega. and the program I created is Together We Can. So the mission statement of Together We Can is to provide fourth graders a positive outlook on laws and authorities while providing a sanctuary away from violence, drugs, and gangs in Arizona. The social issue addressed by this program is helping under-resourced youth and lower-income communities who are at risk of violence, drugs, and gangs. The goal of our program, I know it's hard to see on the table, but the goal of the program is to reduce youth arrests by about 15% in our participating schools and also reduce youth in rehab. We plan to do this by following our program alumni. So why is this program needed? 90% of youth in Glendale Elementary School District are considered to be in poverty. And this is based on the reduced meal program. The census estimates that 64,180 people in Glendale are under the age of 18. The table on the side, the bar graph, I got that information by applying Maricopa County's data from the Arizona Youth Survey and apply it to Glendale's population. As Glendale's population, their statistics were unavailable. And as you can see, there are 19,254 students who are at risk of drug availability, 32,090 who have low commitment to school, 32,090 who are at perceived risk of drug use, and 6,418 students who are at risk for gang involvement. So I found three best practices to use. The first one is implementation of organized sports. I used a meta-analysis for this, and it was found that sports use for juvenile delinquency gave mixed results. However, sports contain positive elements such as pro-social relationships and social skills that may decrease juvenile delinquency. The second implementation is lessons over the importance of law and authority. In this article, I found evaluations of multiple skills, training, and project status showed the effectiveness of classroom-based approach. These programs have shown reductions in substance use, reduced delinquency, and peer pressure. The last one is homework help and tutor. Based on this article, evidence showed that academic achievement is an important factor that combats delinquency and recidivism. Wraparound services and completion of GED showed a reduction in recidivism. Thus, help on homework and tutoring may help improve academic achievement. And provided is an evaluation of these sources. Unfortunately, it's very small, you can't really see it. And then we go on to our flow chart and org chart. I know that they're also hard to see, but for our flow chart, we start at the very top with the CEO, and we have various positions that are all crucial to keep the program running all the way down to volunteers. And then we also have our flow chart, which would show our clients and how they run through the program. And also, I know you can't see it, but it does describe how we would pick our applicants. The application would have questions based on their needs, and we would pick clients who are most in need of our help. And as for our budget, the program total is $714,060. Lastly, our program evaluation is quantitatively. So our research question is, will the participation of 4th through 8th graders in Together We Can reduce referrals to the Maricopa County Juvenile Court? Our outcome measure, our dependent variable is the number of referrals to the MCJC among participants compared to non-participants. Our hypothesis is kids attending Together We Can will see a significant drop in referrals to the MCJC compared to non-participating kids. The overall design is a match control group quasi-experiment. A group of kids in a particular demographic will participate in the program, and they will be compared to a non-participating group of the same demographic. Finally, our analysis techniques, data acquired will be analyzed using a t-test to determine if the program's results are significant. And that is all. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Anthony. We are ready to move on to the next presentation.
Hello.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so our program is called Preparation for Reality, and our program addresses the issue of high school seniors graduating without key attributes of how to function as everyday adults. Their success is limited because of their lack in basic skill sets associated with knowledge and independence, finances, career success, and additional attributes. To improve their basic skills, their skill sets, and we want to implement a mandatory course for high school seniors, and we feel that it should be implemented to focus on seniors learning how to progress in the adult world, as it is apparent that young adults need additional assistance in certain areas of adulthood. So Hope for the Future, which is the name of our organization, is driven by the opportunity of providing an institution that helps to prepare high school seniors located in the Tucson area for their future reality and establishing independence. Through comprehensive courses and activities, students will engage in practical learning to create a basic skill set that enhances their knowledge when faced with real-world circumstances. We aim to enhance readiness for job preparation, financial literacy, and tangible application of analytical problem solving.
Okay, and so our needs assessment. So this mandatory course is entailed for seniors only, and it will be held 6 times a day for 1 hour during Monday through Friday during the school day. And so we set up our program within the Rose Academy School District. So we chose 3 different schools: Pima Rose, Desert Rose, and Mountain Rose. So in total, we have 18 instructors. That includes teachers, and then we also, each teacher has a student teacher that is assigned to them. So in total, we have 474 students. The first graph on top shows the student demographic for each school by race, with blue being Hispanic, red Native American, and white, yellow white, and then green other races. And then the bottom chart shows the demographic for schools based on male and female genders. And then we also do have the breakdown of the teacher to student ratio for each school.
Okay, so now moving on to our budget. So we have our superintendent who will be making $83,000. We have 3 coordinators and each will be making $62,000. So like we said, we have our 3 schools. And so each school has 6 teachers at it. So Pima Rose teachers will be making $40,434. The 6 teachers at Mountain Rose will be making $41,967, and the 6
$41,141. We have that is a subtotal of $1,010,262. With benefits at 30%,
and our, as a grand total with our operational costs and everything, oh, my sound is off.
It's working now.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So our grand total will be $1,341,751.
Okay, and so now for our logic model. As far as resources, since we already had schools in place, all that we needed to provide were instructors that were familiar with the specific curriculum that we wanted to teach, and then just the tools and supplies that go along with each lesson. And then we also have the process and activities like tax information, first aid, budgeting, financial aid, and things like that. And then we also have a total of 21 activities, and we do have guest speakers as well that come to the school and provide real life applications of the things that we're teaching. And so at the end, we just want the students to be sufficient in the, have sufficient knowledge in the curriculum that we provided for them.
So in our organizational chart, we just have our one superintendent, our 3 coordinators, our 6 teachers at 3 different schools, and our 6 guest speakers. We also have for our flow chart, for the sake of time, it just shows us the application process for these students and what their school year will look like as far as planning and meeting with their TAs and graduation or going to summer school.
And then also for our evaluation plan, we have a mixed methods, which is quantitative and qualitative. And we have our independent variable and dependent variable, in which we are just trying to measure how effective our program will be as far as increasing graduation rates and increasing financial literacy for our program. Any questions?
Thank you.
No, what a great job. And Jojo, you are so dedicated. Anybody notice she's driving in a car doing her presentation? So well done to all of
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We're ready for the next presentation.
Hi, everyone. So our project is called Families United, and our mission is to provide affordable therapy and counseling sessions to families experiencing separation or divorce. And we will provide mainly cognitive behavioral therapy as well as play and art therapy for a minimum of 2 sessions per week, each ranging from 1 to 1.5 hours each. And we will provide both individual as well as group activities. And this will increase positive communication and emotional well-being and minimize feelings of anxiety and depression and build strategies on how to deal with conflict and will eventually lead to lower divorce rates.
So as we can see, there is a total of 18,200 divorces, and that's just counting in the Pima County, because that's what we're focusing in for our program. It's just for now working on the Pima County area. And then in order just to get this working and kind of get like the most families helped out, we would be doing around 60 to 70 per day. And then for gender orientation, the age and ethnicity, that's not really relevant to our program just because families are very diverse. And then as we can see on the little, our graph that we have, the first one is just overall including both male and female. The middle one is just the male, and the last one is female. And we're just gonna focus on the first one. So the red section is married, and that's 35.9%. For the blue section, that's they would be widowed, so that's 5.4%. The green section, that's divorced, that's 14%. For the purple, that would be for the separated, that's 2.2%. And then the orange section is they've never been married, and that would be 42.2%.
So for the evidence-based practice, research has shown that cognitive behavioral therapy boosts communication, self-esteem, and relieves overwhelming emotions as well as stress. And cognitive behavioral therapy is also very beneficial for increasing self-awareness as well as emotions by learning how to manage stress and anxious thoughts.
And then here we have our flow and organization chart in order to show how to join the program. Since we are aiming our program towards the lower income family, this is how you would join the program. There's going to be a link on the website, and it would give us like a brief then you would have to take a brief assessment, letting us know in what type of counseling you'd need. Then we'd go down to assessment process, collecting the type of financial info, and our financial advisors would look at the finances that would be needed to help these therapy sessions. And then we'd also have one-on-one therapy for each family member. And then, like I said, on our organizational chart, we have the program director, financial director, and the therapist director. The therapist director would have the three cognitive therapists, psychodynamic therapists, and systematic therapists. And then we also have, like I said, our financial director that would help with the grants, sponsorship, fundraisers, and family finances. And then the budget is next.
Yeah, so for in our budget, since our program is made up, we would have it would be a totally new facility, so we would have to build it from top to bottom. And then with everything included being the new space, the new building, the employees, utilities, and with like work supplies, we would be looking at a grand total of just a little bit over $5 million.
And then for our program evaluation, it is a quantitative outcome. We our outcome measure, dependent variable as well, is just the number of families that are successful when completing this program, to see the better communication, parenting skills, conflict resolutions, and relational behavioral issues. We also strongly believe that our program will provide families with benefits that come from therapy and strategies to communicate better with one another. And then we also have our overall design. We just like to create an organization that will allow low-income families with an opportunity in affordable therapy, and so that every participant can take a brief survey to assess their situation and better analyze what type of therapist or therapy would be better for that type of family. And that is it for our Families United poster. If you have any questions, we would love to answer them.
Good job, group. Good job. You did well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So my group and I are working to expand the Upward Bound program. My name is Abigail Martinez.
I'm Maddie Ryan.
I'm Shuyang Wu.
And I'm Maribel Jimenez. Our mission statement is to assist students from a low-income family to graduate from high school, enter college, and earn a baccalaureate degree. Upward Bound provides fundamental support to 10th through 12th grade students in their preparation for college entrance. These students must come from low-income families and will become the first-generation college student in their family. The program provides mentoring, tutoring, Saturday academies, which are financial literacy, time management, and self-care workshops, as well as a summer program for participants to succeed in their pre-college and higher education pursuits. The goal of Upward Bound is to increase the rate at which participants complete secondary education, enroll in, and graduate from post-secondary education institutions. These efforts are done in hopes to provide an equal opportunity in entering a four-year college, thus allowing students to receive higher paying jobs and more work opportunities. By providing students with social and academic capital, they will build the necessary skills and resources in the transition from high school to college.
Now going over to our needs assessment, we can see that our social problem is the need to increase high school graduation rates, decrease the dropout rate, and increase college enrollment. We would like to extend our number of staff and students by doubling the number. We are currently located at 2 high schools, Sunnyside High School and Desert View High School, and would like to expand to 2 more. A majority of our high school students identify as Hispanic, and looking at our charts, the first chart with the green and blue, we can see that our Hispanic rates is not the lowest in graduation rates, but it is one of the lowest. And looking at the next one, we can also see that Pima County in general has one of the lowest graduation as well. And moving on to our intervention, according to the Upward Bound fact sheet, there are mentoring, academic preparation, and field research activities implemented in the program to help the underserved population. The Upward Bound program has been around for more than 30 years and has improved immensely. It has been tested that a child who is in Upward Bound for 2 to 4 years had the highest graduation rates, and students who participated in Upward Bound were 2.694 times more likely to apply to a post-secondary education than those that did not. One way that Upward Bound projects attempt to raise the college enrollment and graduation rates of disadvantaged students is through improvement in high school achievement and preparation.
Next is our flowchart, which start with we give out brochures and information card in our advisement events. We will contact students who show interest into our program. They will have to submit an application and we will review them, send out the acceptance and rejections letters before semester begins. Then we will have our information section in the beginning of each semester where mentors and students all meet together to set up the schedules and section plans. After that, they will start their regular one-on-one meetings of mentoring or tutoring, depends on their needs. And also the Saturday academies for all participants. Our organization is belong to the College of Education and supervised by Director of Educational Policy, Studies, and Practice. We have 1 finance manager and 4 coordinators work at each of the 4 targeted high schools, and 3 mentors will be working under each coordinators. And for our budget, we have a short list of personnel and our mentors are volunteering here. And the operational costs are mostly for the summer program, lunches, and the stipends for the exceptional students. Also, we have a $500 travel cost for a college visit and $1,000 budget on office supplies and printed handouts, which gives us a grand total of $256,071.65 per year.
So to conclude our presentation, this is our evaluation plan, and this relates to our mission statement and our research question, which is, what is the relationship between college acceptance and graduation rates amongst the students that are in Upward Bound and those who are not in the program but are still first generation? And the overall intent for this analysis is to recognize the success and see what has been working. And our hypothesis is that if we are able to expand on our program to 2 other schools, then the number of graduation and college acceptance rates will ultimately increase. And overall, the comparison of data from before and after they have been with the program for 1 full academic year corresponds with the answers from the mini survey form that we will have the students fill out. And this allows us to find what elements have been working for us and what needs improvement. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Again, another great presentation. Abigail, I hope your air conditioning is turned on in that car. Okay. Well done, you. Well done.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Lai, and I am graduating in 2 short weeks. So my program is providing services for victims of domestic minor sex trafficking in Arizona. The mission of my organization is to support and empower minors who are victims of sex trafficking. My organization also believes that community education plays a vital role in the rehabilitation and healing process for the minors. So 2 of my main goals are providing comprehensive services to minors and improving and enhancing community education and programming to prevent domestic minor sex trafficking. So for my logic model, I really want to focus on my activities and my outcomes. So my 3 main activities will be specialized case management with the work of licensed clinical social workers. So that includes a plan for safety, therapy, and housing assistance. Next, we will have mentoring programs that will provide life, education, and career building skills. And the last activity will be that communities will receive training on human trafficking, and these will be personalized for personnel in child welfare, first responders, schools, and law enforcement. So when it comes to my outcomes, my 2 main outcomes are that after our services, the victims will successfully reintegrate into society, and that community's awareness of domestic minor sex trafficking will increase calls to sex trafficking hotlines that will drive down the rates that minors are being sex trafficked at. My budget runs just under $1 million, and this includes personnel, rent for our space, supplies, and travel. Up top, we have my needs assessment. So for my needs assessment, the gender orientation of the victim services is 98% females and 2% males. This is because for every 100 people that are sex trafficked, 98 of them are females and 2 of them are males. For the community trainings, the gender orientation is split half and half, but this isn't exclusive, and anyone who wants to participate in this, of course, can. And under my gender orientation chart, I provided a visual representation of minors who are sex trafficked in the United States, and each figure represents 10,000 minors who are victims of sex trafficking. So underneath my needs assessment is the program and organizational flow chart. Reporting to the director are my 3 managers: the office manager, program manager, and training manager. So my office manager will handle the accountant and administrative services. The program manager will handle the social workers and mentors, and the training manager will be in charge of the volunteers and trained crisis responders. Underneath that, you can see my 2-part program. So we'll start with the program intake, and the top half is working with the victims. So it starts off with the report of domestic minor sex trafficking and includes all the activities, including counseling, housing assistance, mentoring service, all leading to an exit screening, which will result in permanent housing found and kind of a transition out of our services. Underneath that is our trainings. These will take place there'll be 1 training per county each year. So it starts with recruiting volunteers. The crisis responders will then train the volunteers. And then this leads to the overall outcome of the public awareness of domestic minor sex trafficking will drive down the rates that minors are being sex trafficked. So for my intervention in 2017, a study was conducted that analyzed data calls from healthcare professionals to the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. So this training included characteristics of victims and their traffickers, what the risk factors are, and basic identification signs and symptoms. So overall, their database demonstrated increased call trends to those who received the training. So for the next part of my intervention in evidence-based practice, a recent study was actually completed earlier this year, and it was titled A Longitudinal Evaluation of a Survivor Mentor Program for Child Survivors of Sex Trafficking in the United States. So the aim of the study was to assess whether youth who participated in these survivor mentor programs had evident changes in their health, their social support, and their coping within the following years in the enrollment of the mentor services. So they found at the 6 and 12-month baseline, the minors who received these services were less likely to use illicit drugs, they had better coping and better social skills. So for my evaluation plans, the first part, the trainings will use quantitative measures, and the dependent variable will be the number of calls made to make reports of domestic minor sex trafficking. The pre-test will assess how many people felt comfortable to make the calls to the hotline, and the post-test will assess how knowledgeable each individual feels on the topic of domestic minor sex trafficking, the awareness, and if they're comfortable enough to make the call or not. After 6 months of the training, we will be tracking the number of calls that the state hotline is receiving. And finally, the services for the victims will use a mixed method of qualitative and quantitative data. The research question that I'm focusing on is, will 6 months of services with a licensed clinical social worker and an education career mentor help the victims achieve reliable housing and an increased sense of safety and trauma reduction? So housing will be assessed with the pre-test and pro-test. Do they have housing before versus do they have housing after? And then for measuring an increased sense of safety and trauma reduction, the victims will answer a survey and be interviewed to exit the program. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Again, well done. Big eyes, strong voice, Lauren.
Thank you.
Hi, Lauren. So this is Melissa Curran. Great presentation. I love like your visual presentation. I like how there's like this flow chart. I love how there's graphs. I love how you cited all that recent research, which is so wonderful. So I'm sold, right? If I was a funder, I would, if I was someone giving money, I would fund you. But what would you say to people who are like, well, I think you're going to have a hard time getting these folks in here. I'm sure that you're not going to get enough folks in here. I see lots of reporting issues. So basically, like people who like want to be convinced, like what other information would you share with them to be like, here's what you need to know to make this a fundable program? Because I feel like it's so important, but I can feel like resistance from folks. So what would be your pitch?
Yeah, I think I would talk about the data behind it. So, sex trafficking is actually the third largest organized crime in the United States. The first is gun violence, and the second is with narcotics. So, I think every single day we hear about, gun violence, we hear about drug abuse, but people aren't talking about sex trafficking, especially domestic minor sex trafficking, because it is an uncomfortable topic to talk about. So, I think it's important to provide the research and break down the stigma so we're able to move forward to help the victims and educate more people.
Yeah, those are great points. And then like for the services for the the participants themselves, like what obstacles do you see for them wanting to be participants or to continue into the program or to recommend the program to others? Like what obstacles or barriers do you see for them?
So some obstacles I actually thought of when doing this was actually just traveling even to our programs, because for a lot of people, if they live in rural areas or they live far away or they have no means of transportation, they're not even going to want to enter the program to begin with. So that's why in my budget, I included, bus passes and lift passes for victims to even be able to come to my program to begin with in order to, work towards rehabilitation and healing.
Yeah, great points. And then like everything that's happening with COVID right now, like it makes it all the more important because like basically many states are telling people to stay at home, right? And so like those bus passes that you talked about, like those would kind of be on a pause right now, right? So like, I mean, not that you have to figure out everything related to COVID, that's someone's job bigger than us. But how do you think like the whole COVID situation, especially if it might continue or come up again, like how might you think about that specific to what you suggested?
Yeah, I think providing people with as many resources as possible, whether it's through Zoom, whether it's through a phone call, but, giving people options and resources to get the services they need, especially in times like COVID.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cristal Regosa, and I will be presenting on the College Academy for Parents. So interesting enough, I was a participant in 5th grade, and then it'll be more understandable once I go over it. So kind of going over the mission statement and logic model, the College Academy for Parents, also known as CAP, is a free college preparation program, and it kind of informs both parents and kinder through 12th grade students on how to succeed in entering college. So a little bit about our goal and objectives is that CAP wants to increase the number of low-income, minority, and first-generation college students. So this involves like 20 plus families from Sunnyside Unified School Districts, also known as SUSD, elementary schools annually. So with this, we do want to kind of add more to it, potentially adding online workshops and potentially also having a year-long program just so it's more accessible to families and providing that college access once again. So it's a little hard to see, but going over the logic model and kind of going over how the program works, we do have one CAP coordinator. So the coordinator is the one that oversees the program, and they also teach Spanish workshops because we do have both English and Spanish workshops for families. And then we do have a graduate assistant, and they're the one who kind of like works with the English workshop, and they're also the lecturer for that workshop. We also have a student coordinator, which is me, as I currently work with them. And I kind of oversee 10 camp leaders, which are undergraduate students at the University of Arizona. And then kind of adding on to that, we have 10 camp leaders, which are the undergrad students, and they work with kinder through 6th grade students in the SUSD district. And this is also known as the college camp. And then we do work with Sunnyside Unified School District, so we are kind of borrowing the location by using Apollo Middle School, which is towards like the south side of Tucson. So kind of going more into it, we are based on a 12-week program, and we do have workshops on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. every week. And then there are 4 different components of CAP. So this includes the parent workshops, college camp, which is like kinder through 6th grade students. And then we have 2 U of A campus visits. And then at the end, we do have a parent graduation. So kind of adding on to this, we see that it's really, really valuable to have this program because it kind of leads to a future success of like having these informative workshops for these students and parents as they prepare for college. And then we do also have childcare for kids that are in the years of 2 to 4 years old. So kind of adding a little bit more to the components of CAP, what we do is we usually focus on college preparation and college access, and then applying to university, scholarships, and kind of just like applying to FAFSA in general. And then we do also focus on folks that identify as DACA and undocumented. And yeah, so we have both English and Spanish workshops because we are working with the community that has like different languages. So kind of adding on to like the college camp, we have a little bit about talking about like inspirational, kind of like adding those educational aspirations to the students who are in kinder through 12th grade, specifically kinder through 6th grade, and then also having 2 U of A college visits, because with this, a lot of folks do not know what a college looks like or university, so we have them have the opportunity to go to university. And then the parent graduation with that is kind of just like a congratulations to the parents at the end of the program. So with this, we do want families to be informed because we do work with a lot of first generation, low income, students of color, families of color. And we noticed that there was not a high retention rate on that population. So with that, we want to focus on like the lack of information, financial resources, and poor preparation that they have in order to increase the retention at higher education institutions. So talking a little bit about the needs assessment, we do work with both English and Spanish speaking families, and this is really important because the SUSD demographics focuses mainly on Latinx or Hispanic individuals. So with that, it's kind of interesting to see how the majority of our population is Latinx or Hispanic, but we also have Native American and white folks. So as for our intervention and best practice, with this, we kind of see that we want to include weekly programs and a year-long program because we know that a lot of folks might not be available on Wednesday evenings from 6 to 8. So that's something that we can provide access to. Kind of going into our flowchart and org chart, we do have a director, a coordinator, and graduate assistant as mentioned, and then the student coordinator that works with the camp leaders, which also the camp leaders work with the kinder through 6th grade students. So what we mainly focus on is our recruitment because that is kind of like a long year process. We have folks register and then we kind of start the program. And then once again, this is a 12-week program, also focusing on attending campus visits. So we do kind of have a big budget, but at the same time, we also have assistance with that. So we do have orders of supplies. You know, this includes both snacks for the students, printing out sheets and curriculum for the students and the parents because we do focus on a lot of information. So that is something to focus on, you know, at the same time adding like having to pay for the folks that work with us. As for our evaluation plan, I am looking into a quantitative like evaluation because our research question once again is having the retention of these populations, being that we don't really see it in higher education institutions. So we do want to measure this in kind of doing a quasi experiment, and with this, once again with the 12-week program, it's kind of focusing on how many participants we have, and at the same time having sample questions and a questionnaire that focus mainly on the college preparation program before and after. And we usually focus on questions that ask, I understand the importance of applying for FAFSA. I understand the difference between a community college versus university degree, and kind of going through the program overall. We want to see how effective it is. And once again, just see like the retention rates of these populations. And overall, just having folks be aware of college access because we know that there is a lack of this population in higher education institutions. And I think that's something really important that we need to focus on. So thank you all so much. And then if you do have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask.
Thank you so much for that presentation. We are ready to move on to the next one.
Hello guys, my name is Patricia.
Hi, my name is Steven Chideris.
I am Kelly Masters.
And I'm Jasmine. Sorry, I just got my audio to work.
And the program we decided to come up with is called TOT, or also known as Trisha's Occupational Therapy. Our mission statement is at TOT, we strive to provide quality occupational therapy in Whittier, California for children ages 1 through 12 with developmental disabilities to enable them with the independence and mobility needed for everyday life. Our logic model just has the basic overall outcomes and processes we're going to be focusing on. So some of the processes is we want the parents to be very involved in this. So we're going to provide sensory need education classes for the parents. And then we're going to focus on play therapy for the rehabilitation programs and activities for the children. And then some of the outcomes are we want our clients to be able to build motor skills, strengthen eye-hand coordination, and then just to be able to do the basic everyday activities in their daily living. And then below is the budget plan. Since we are making this from scratch, our grand total is $1,006,312. And that just includes things like who we're gonna hire, so 10 occupational therapists, an accountant, educators for the parents, front desk employees, and then for the building, we have just the building costs, electricity, things like that. And then for supplies, that includes like front desk supplies, computers, printers, and then play therapy equipment. So medicine balls, learning blocks, coloring books, just anything that can help them with that.
And then for our needs assessment, so we will have about 50 clients at a time, 5 clients per occupational therapist. About per year, we want to see about 500 to 600 clients per week, month, it'll be about 50. Total population for children with autism is about 86,064. 17% of that age is 12 and under. And then approximately 1 in 59 children are diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder and end up needing occupational therapy at some point. Also, early intervention affords the best opportunity to support healthy development and deliver benefits across the lifespan. 31% of children with autism have an intellectual disability with significant challenges in daily function. The other 69% of children in need of OT can be accounted for reasons such as birth injuries, traumatic injuries, or sensory processing disorders.
Okay, and then for our evidence-based practice, at TOT, the goal will be helping young children with developmental disabilities rehabilitate, reintegrate, and gain independence. Studies support the use of planned and controlled sensory input for enhancing the development and sensory processing of children with autism and pervasive developmental disorders. Developing fine motor skills can help children learn to write, eat, and dress themselves. In a study conducted by 3 researchers, they found that there's a strong evidence that constraint-induced movement therapy and intensive bimanual therapy work for children with unilateral cerebral palsy and pervasive developmental disorders of different age groups to improve upper limb function, achieve individualized goals, and promote plasticity. The same researchers suggest that key components of service provision should be that therapy is goal-directed, use contemporary motor learned-based approaches such as constraint-induced movement therapy or task-oriented therapy.
Kelly, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay, so for our flow and organization chart, we kind of did 3 different charts just to give you guys like a full overview of how each step in the process will work. So when the children initially come in, if they need just occupational therapy, we'll do we'll sign them up for Trisha's occupational therapy. Our occupational therapist will do an intake assessment. And then if the child also needs mental disability help, we will sign them up for TOT and connect them with resources for mental disability help. And then we will have a connection with those resources in the sense that our files will be shared and we'll be getting updates on how they're doing in that kind of rehabilitation and how we're doing at occupational therapy. And then so after the intake assessment, parent questionnaires will be handed out to assess the immediate needs of the kids and what would be most helpful for each individual family and child day to day. And then the occupational therapist will come up with a set plan of what to do day to day, month to month, and plan out specific goals for each child that are to be met by each of those time periods. As for the parents, we kind of made our own plan for them because this is just as much about helping them in their everyday lives with their children as it is about the kids. So when they do their intake assessment, we'll have the parents fill out kind of what they're struggling with, what their kids are struggling with, and what would be the most helpful. And then the therapist will do that initial screening. The parents and the therapist will discuss an appropriate weekly schedule that works for their family. And then the parents will meet with an accountant to discuss some kind of payment plan or if they can pay up front, whatever works for them. And then they'll begin their sessions. And the parents will also have mandatory classes, I think it's about 10, that they'll have to take during that time that their child's in occupational therapy to learn how to work on things at home and how to best continue that kind of therapy even after they're finished with TOT. And then as far as our organization chart for the staff, it'll go director, we'll have one director, one manager, a clinical department and administration, 10 occupational therapists, 2 parent educators, and then an accountant and 3 front desk employees. For our program evaluation, our research question is, will TOT enable children ages 1 to 12 to gain independence and mobility in their everyday lives? The outcome measure will be how many children come in to TOT ages 1 to 12 and leave with more skills than they came in with and more ability to participate in those independent everyday living activities. Our hypothesis is that after a set amount of time at TOT, depending on the extent of the developmental disabilities, children with these disabilities will gain independence in their everyday activities such as eating, writing, getting dressed, getting out of bed, and will gain mobility in their bodies to be able to walk, play, and do things more independently. As for our qualitative analysis, will TOT, our research question is, will TOT make the lives of children with developmental disabilities easier on a day-to-day basis, as well as improve their sense of independence? Our intent of analysis is to show that TOT can improve the lives of these children, as well as to track the progress of the children. So as a clinic, we can make improvements and either continue to do what we're doing or make some changes. Overall method of data collection will be reports both verbal and written on a questionnaire and just from parents and children. Visual, verbal, and written reports from the occupational therapist as well. We'll be asking children how they're feeling, what they would like to work on, and we'll be asking parents the same questions, just to make sure that everything that we're doing is in their best interest and is helping them as much as possible. Does anybody have any questions?
Good job, Kelly, and the TOT group.
Oh, are we done?
Thank you.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you guys, that was a great presentation. So hi everyone, so my name is Kayla Williams and I am a senior in the Family Studies and Human Development program with a minor in Nutritional Sciences. And before I start really quick, just wanna let everyone know, so the Garden Kitchen is actually a program I've been working for almost 2 years now. I've learned so much working for them and through this project, so I'm super excited to tell you all about it. So starting out, our social problem is that the community members in the community, they rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP or food stamps. And a lot of those people may not have access to nutrient-dense food or have the proper fitness knowledge in order to stay fit. So our mission statement is to empower Pima County residents in building community wellness by providing healthy eating strategies through sustainable living and nutrition and fitness education for community residents of all ages. So I'm just gonna go over a few of the activities that we do in our program. So basically, what we have is what's called our Fit for Saturdays. So every first Saturday of the month, we actually start off with a physical activity during the day, and then a food demonstration that's done on a recipe that uses local ingredients. And then we do a gardening lesson based off of low desert terrain because Tucson is in low desert terrain. Another one that we do is called our hands-on cooking classes, where people come and pay to learn how to do proper knife skills and also learn how to do recipes using local ingredients as well. And the money that goes into the hands-on cooking classes actually pays for the Fit for Saturdays, so it kind of is like a cycle. And then another one of our big ones is called our Desert Food Festival, where it happens once a year, every November, and we have vendors from all over the community come, and all the vendors are very well connected to sustainable living. So it could be water conservation, recycling, trash, farmers market, and we also do food demonstrations there too. I've actually done a couple of food demonstrations, super fun. And we have about 300 to 400 people attend that. So keep in mind that all of these allow exposure to the community, and we look for behavior change at the individual level as well. And then lastly, we have around 39 garden facilities throughout the community. And this number does change because once we're done with one garden and we feel that they can sustain it, we move on to a new place. And it allows a safe space for them to learn about healthy eating and lessen food insecurity as well. And then so how do people find us? So they're most likely going to be affiliated with SNAP, but they don't always have to be, but they can see us on social media, they can see us at resource fairs, or they can even be living in the neighborhood and they come by and see us a lot. So they'll attend one of our events, and when they do, we give them an evaluation at the end of the program in hopes to see, what can we do better in the future? And then we also reach out to them post-programming to kind of be like, okay, so what have you done in your life to live a healthier lifestyle? And then we would also like to give them the opportunity to be recognized on social media, especially given the current circumstances. We've actually started what's called the #HealthyTogether campaign, where we do have people submit like, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is what I'm cooking at home, this is how I'm working out, things like that. So then what's the need in the community? So the Garden Kitchen, we actually serve around 7,000 residents. And as you can see, and as of 2017, there's a really big number of families, whether married or not, around almost 20,000 families that are on SNAP. And then in Arizona, there's 850,000 people every month as well. And then where's the evidence? So this was really interesting for me because I did find an article that talked about childhood hunger on a Mexico-Texas border. And I found that this is really relevant to us because being in Tucson, we live pretty close to the border, about an hour or so. So this study did find that there is prevalence in child hunger and there are risk factors tied to being near the border. So by having a program like ours, we can help lessen that. And then I also found a couple of other studies that talked about how in all of America, 73% of people aren't getting adequate vegetables and fruit, which is a really high number. And in Arizona alone, we only get 1.4 servings of fruit a day and 1.6 servings of vegetables a day, which altogether is only 3 servings. And the RDA, the recommended daily allowance, is actually 5 servings a day. And so, having a program like ours can actually help that. And then lastly, program evaluation. So the question that we're asking here is, if we have programming such as ours for like nutrition education, physical activity education, and gardening lessons, are we gonna see an increase in healthier lifestyles in the population overall through the use of surveys, self-reporting, and comparison and contrast? between those people so that we can better our program in the future. And so that, my friends, is a taste of the Garden Kitchen. So thank you, and if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, and we are ready for the next presentation.
Wow.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine, and I will be presenting with Jessica Nelson.
Jessica.
Our program is Sierra Vista Mobile Medical Services, and first I'll start with reading our mission statement. So our mission is to provide mobilized medical care and child life services to Sierra Vista residents, with a focus on providing and explaining medical knowledge as well as an effective communication with our patients, being a source of support during this difficult time. For our logic model, we'll go more into our staff breakdown a little later, and our resources are thoroughly detailed in our budget. Our overall outcomes and goals are to reduce the stress and anxiety levels from children and make it so patients drive fewer miles to access medical care.
So kind of looking over at our needs assessment, overall our charts are looking at the inpatient, outpatient, and the pharmacy numbers in Sierra Vista. They're kind of broken down per year, per month, per week, and the expected number that are needed per day. The pie charts, these are the number of visits for each of these services receive on average in Sierra Vista during each of those increments of time. And that same kind of principle applies for that bar graph, but that is for patient totals for those services.
And now for the intervention part of it, for the child care portion of the program, there was a study which found that the implementation of the services of wildlife specialists significantly reduces anxiety levels felt by children surrounding medical situations and experiences. Then for the general mobile medical service aspect of the program, it has been found that in rural areas, it is possible to tend to critical medical emergencies safely and effectively, which is important for Sierra Vista when distance can be a huge limitation for many residents.
So when I was looking in Sierra Vista, there's actually a medical service that services all of Cochise County. But since we looked specifically at Sierra Vista, I wanted to partner with them. So that's kind of our partner advisory board on our organizational chart. So then looking specifically at our service, we've got a director that kind of oversees the entirety of the program. And we've got kind of a service of volunteers that would help out with the program. But then for specifically our staff, we've got medical staff that splits between our two, because we've got a medical part that has a bus that does specifically medical services for residents, and then we've got a van that does the child life part. So we've got a pediatrician, the child life specialist, a rotating NAUPA student that would come in every 4 months, and we just keep doing that. A bilingual nurse, because a lot of the residents there are Spanish speaking, and then a nurse practitioner. And then we've got 2 secretaries, one that would specifically do scheduling, and then one that would do answering phones and intake, because it's kind of a lot for one person to do. And then for vehicles, because a bus is really big, we have to have a commercial driver's license driver for that. And then someone that has to take care of the vehicle maintenance, so a mechanic. And then kind of just to do an overview of our flow chart. So it just kind of shows how patients would go through our service, starting with referrals into our program from medical services, hospitals, schools. And then they would come in, do scheduling, get our services. And then if something is kind of outside of our wheelhouse, we would have a list of specialists and stuff that we would be able to refer them to.
And quickly for our budget, this includes personnel, travel, supplies. The grand total is $1,143,218 to fund this program.
Kind of go over our evaluation plan too. So our kind of big question was, does the implementation of a mobile health and child life service program create greater access to local medical services and reduce the anxiety of youth concerning mobile medical services in Sierra Vista? And so since we kind of have 2 parts of our program, we split it between the bus and the van. So For the bus, it's do individuals who report receiving greater access to medical care in local limits, and then the van, do children report lower levels of anxiety concerning medical services. We kind of thought, does this, reduce the anxiety for children, and do people have greater access to medical care? That's kind of our overall hypothesis. And our design is just kind of pre-test, post-test, so giving people questionnaires to fill out on both of these services concerning anxiety and medical care is how we're going to kind of see if this program is going to work.
That's our program. Thank you.
Anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you. Job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready for the next presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Giselle Sanchez and I will be presenting with my classmates Ariana and Jackie. Today we are going to present our organization, Warriors of Today. I will begin with our mission statement. Warriors of Today will create hope, heal, advocate, nurture, give community, and empower youth survivors of sexual assault in Pima County. According to the 2019 U.S. Census Bureau, there are 218,205 youth ages 1 to 18 in Pima County. 51% are female and 49% are male. Out of the 51% female youth population, 11% will become victims. That's 12,241 females. Out of the 49% male youth population, 2% will become victims. That's 2,138 males. Warriors of Today will offer clients mental health counseling, substance abuse therapy, EMDR therapy, extracurricular activities with other youth in the program, understanding trauma classes, and adolescent development classes for parents, families, and the community.
So cognitive behavioral therapy and eye movement desensitization are two of the services that will be offered to our clients. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which is also known as CBT therapy, is important because it promotes two important things. It promotes a safe and open environment, allowing the client to form a comfortable and trustworthy relationship with their therapist. It will also allow the client to talk about and cope with their trauma in a healthy and safe way, going within their own pace. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is also known as EMDR therapy, is an effective way to treat trauma. EMDR therapy is a psychotherapy method used to treat distressing life experiences along with treating their side effects, including PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other panic disorders. Going on to our organization chart, it will be led by our board of directors, which include the main director. We will have human resources, lawyer, behavioral health director, a finance director, and a volunteer and activity director. When it comes to the clients, they will first go through intake, and that will determine if the organization can help the client with their needs. If we could help their needs, the client will be given an option of either going through therapy or counseling. If the client is not ready for counseling or therapy at the time, they will still be able to participate in and utilize any other services that the organization has to offer.
The budget includes personnel, operation costs, travel, and supplies, with a grand total of $1,838,830. From here, we will now look at the evaluation plan. The goal of quantitative analysis is to visit schools in Pima County and provide knowledge, information, and classes on sexual assault in youth, and represent the different resources Warriors of Today will provide for youth survivors, their family, and the community. We will achieve this by keeping track of intake and counting the schools, facilities that we have presented in. Board of Directors will have meetings on this every month. The intent of qualitative analysis is to ensure no youth deals with trauma alone, provide youth awareness, give community to youth who have experienced sexual trauma, and give a voice to youth survivors so that they themselves can create change. Data will be collected through counseling and therapy, Likert questionnaire, and daily diaries.
Warriors of Today is an organization that will help youth survivors of sexual assault cope and heal from their trauma. This program will provide youth with counseling and therapy, as well as creating a community of support so no youth has to deal with trauma alone. Warriors of Today will change together. Create hope, heal, advocate, nurture, give community, and empower.
Well done, Giselle. This could work.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And we are ready for our final presentation.
Everybody, my name is Caroline Stanton, and I am doing my presentation on the Phoenix Children's Hospital Child Life Program. It's an existing program that serves all of the children in the Maricopa County. So their social problem and issue that they state is that there is, we know it's important for kids to be kids, even when they're in the hospital. Our Child Life program, available in all inpatient departments, helps make a child's hospital stay a little easier. Their mission statement is, our Child Life program helps patients and their families develop ways to cope with fear, anxiety, and separation from home and school. Our staff works closely with family members during hospitalization. As the medical team is attending to the child's physical needs, our child life specialists are attending to the child's developmental, psychosocial, educational, and emotional needs, which can be critical in the treatment and healing process. Their goals and objectives are that child life can also help when your child needs help understanding the hospital, a brother or sister is upset about a sibling's hospitalization. You're looking for play and activity ideas. You need information about your child's development. And if you need help with child-friendly explanations of hospital experiences. Overall, yearly, the Phoenix Children's Hospital serves 148,000 patients a year. Children in Maricopa County alone make up almost 27% of the overall population within Maricopa County. So that's a pretty big just population of children. Phoenix Children's Hospital primarily serves a large demographic of children from different backgrounds, including Hispanic and Latin American. I found 2 case studies in my research of the benefit of a child life specialist intervention within a hospital program. In a study from the Journal of Specialists in Pediatric Nursing, they found 5 themes that showed the benefit of having a child life specialist in a pediatric care facility. Of these, it describes how the presence of a child life specialist positively impacts children and other nurses through the use of distraction during procedures. The study goes on to discuss how nurses reported that they were more at ease when a child life specialist was there during procedures because it allowed them to do their job better. Another finding from that study is that children began to associate nurses with pain and discomfort, whereas they began to associate the child life specialists with fun and excitement. This contrast in roles is beneficial during these procedures because it allows for everyone's job to be done properly. Overall, this study found that distraction techniques and the presence of a child life specialist allowed for an overall better patient experience. And then in another journal, in the Journal of Orthopedics, they discussed how if the presence of a child life specialist was feasible in an orthopedic setting, like in the cast rooms. The cast rooms are where it's noisy, it's kind of anxious for children, and it's where you'll have casts being removed with the like saw kind of thing, and fracture manipulations, pin removals, all things that can cause pediatric anxiety. So in a randomized study, they found that with a child life specialist present, there was a lower pediatric anxiety level than without a child life specialist present. They did this by looking at heart rate and just overall presence of the child. And they found, that a child life specialist positively affects children and their caregivers in reducing pediatric anxiety in orthopedic settings. Then coming over to my flow chart and org chart. In this program, there are 30 child life specialists, 16 child life assistants, and 7 at-home staff. So the child life assistants are basically the ones that will be helping run programs and learning activities with children that are in hospital for long-term care. And then the at-school staff would be helping with the transition back to school and their life after the hospital. And then the way that the program receives its patients is primarily through doctor referrals. So once a child gets sick and they see their pediatric primary care doctor, their doctor will probably refer them to see another doctor within the hospital, and that's when the child will arrive in inpatient care and receive a child life specialist. And then once the role of the child life specialist is to help the child psychologically and comfortably feel at home in the hospital and kind of get their footing in while they're being inpatients. And then going into the budget, total will be about $1,243,150 total. And that's just looking at just for the cost for the program with the toys and office supplies, equipment, and other supplies. The evaluation plan, the intent of the analysis, I'm going to do a qualitative analysis for this program. I'm going to try to find if the implementation of the Child Life Specialist program is beneficial towards the health of pediatric patients. The overall method of data collection is I plan to use surveys, questionnaires, and in-depth interviews of the patients and the family to determine if the patient's overall quality of life and anxiety and perceived stress is better before or is higher before and lower after child life specialist intervention. And then I will analyze the patient's stress and anxiety. I hope to see that patient anxiety and stress levels are higher before intervention and lower after intervention to show that the implementation of the Child Life Specialist program is beneficial in hospitals. And that is all. I'll take any questions now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much to all of the presenters. You all really did a fantastic job. Thank you for participating. Thank you for all of you who attended and asked great questions and paid close attention. Thanks to those of you who are watching and will watch on Facebook as well. And really, I wish we should give a virtual round of applause to all of the students who really did a fantastic job, especially under the circumstances. And again, a special thanks to Ali Sosi Harvey, who really made this all happen. So happy Friday, everyone. Please follow FMI on social media and take care.